Hello, I am doing video lesson number 7 on the elements. I'm going to introduce you to the expectations of what we need to do with learning the element names and their symbols. Now there are 118 elements known right now, and I'll be asking you to know only the commonly used elements in our chemistry classroom. So do anticipate that in about a week you will have a quiz where I give you the element symbol and you give me the name, or vice versa. I give you the name of the element and you give me the symbol. So let me prepare you for that expectation. I have a PowerPoint that I am going to share with you. This PowerPoint is also posted in Schoology, so know that you'll be fine watching this again there. All right. So this PowerPoint, I will not go through it completely right now because you can do that on your own. And I made it purposefully for you to be able to practice the elements and their symbols. But the first couple of slides explain to you my expectations. So we will be looking at classification the first 2 days of this chapter 1 on matter and change. You'll notice that matter here at the top of this classification scheme is really referring to everything, all stuff, all stuff. We'd like to say that the universe is made up of matter and energy, and I would love to talk to you about that conversion possibility between matter and energy. But right now, let's think of matter in chemistry as the stuff of the universe. That would be anything that has mass and takes up space. Well, if you look at all of matter, we can break it down into 2 categories. That matter which is pure, and we specifically use the word substance to synonymously mean pure. When I say something is pure, it is a substance. When I say this is a substance, it means it is pure. And in contrast to pure substances, we have mixtures, things that are made of all kinds of stuff. Now, of the pure substances, you'll see that elements are one of the 2 categories of pure substances. We'll be looking at the names and symbols of elements in this particular video. So the elements are pure substances that cannot be separated into different substances by ordinary processes. They're the building blocks of matter. And as of 2015, we have 118 elements on the periodic table. I have to keep adding symbols to the periodic table in the front of our classroom. Now, the symbols of the elements are always 1 or 2 letter abbreviations. The first letter is always capitalized. The second letter is never capitalized. It must be a lowercase letter. For example, carbon, nitrogen, fluorine, and oxygen are all 1 letter as a symbol. But cobalt, calcium, bromine, and magnesium require 2 letters, the second letter being a lowercase. Should you accidentally write this second letter as an uppercase capital letter, it will be incorrect. I point out that some names of elements are strange, but it's because they're based on their Latin name. I will never ask you to give me their Latin name, but if you're familiar with the Latin name, their symbol makes much more sense. You see, back in the 17 and 1800s, Latin was the language of science. If these elements were named by their Latin names and those Latin names have stuck for 200 years, it must mean that these are some of the most earliest discovered elements. So I point out to you, not to be tested on the Latin name, but I point out to you the Latin name so that the symbol makes sense. Copper is abbreviated Cu because of the Latin name cuprum. Now, if you put Co, that's cobalt, so it would be wrong. Copper is Cu. Gold is Au. And you're familiar with the Latin name aurum, you might have heard of Aurora Borealis, or you might have heard of the Disney princess Aurora. That is because of her golden hair, or the northern lights have this golden color to them. The Latin name aurum is used for the abbreviation for gold, AU. Plumbum is interesting because the metal lead is known to be one of the most malleable, bendable metals out there. And so lead was commonly used for pipes and ductwork for water. In fact, the very word for the person who comes and works on our pipes that hold our water is called a plumber because of this Latin name. Now, plumbers no longer use lead in our pipes. In fact, lead has to be taken out completely from any home that you might buy. But the Latin name still is the HG for this name for, the Latin name for lead is Pb because of the Latin name plumbum. Mercury is also based on the Latin name, and that is the name for silver water. Silver water, Hg, hygrarium. Potassium is K. It is not P. P is phosphorus. So you have to remember potassium is one of the unusual element symbols based on its Latin name, kalium. Argentum, Argentum is interesting. You know the word argentum, the Latin name for silver, because when Argentina was first named, it was named for the silver in the mountains. Argentina has lots of silver in the mountains there. So argentum, Ag for silver, Na for natrium, but actually you'll come to know sodium as a very reactive and dangerous metal, especially if put to water. And so I like to think of the song, na 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 na, na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. And that's because if you drop sodium in water, na na na, goodbye. It is a very explosive metal. And of course, I'll show it to you on a very small scale when we're in the laboratory. Tin is Sn for stannum, and iron is Fe for ferrum. If you've just heard the Latin names, their symbols will make more sense. Please know that these are commonly missed element symbols. So now for the rest of this periodic table, I have the names of elements that you could go through and give me the symbol. I expect that would be an exercise you would do by using this PowerPoint as posted on Schoology. So that's all I really wanted to do with this video on the names and symbols of elements, except I cannot go any farther without sharing with you two wonderful books. First, this book by Oliver Sacks. He recently died last year. Oliver Sacks, called Uncle's Tungsten. The uncle of Oliver Sacks actually had a light bulb factory in London prior to World War II. This is his story about growing up and loving chemistry. What he would do in the basement of his house is unimaginable to me. But Uncle Tungsten by Oliver Sacks. When you think periodic table and all things chemistry, you should think of Theodore Gray. Theodore Gray has several books out, and I'll show you these in our classroom. This is his first book called The Elements, and as you can see back here, I have several others of his books called Molecules and Reactions. I now am going to share with you a 5-minute video by Oliver Gray. I hope you stay and watch it. It shows you a fascination of what elements are, how you hold these elements in your hands. Theodore Gray is an amazingly creative scientist, and he has made a periodic table. Let me share this with you so that you can enjoy it also. At the end of the 5-minute video, I'll say goodbye, and this will be all. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Theodore Gray. In 1988, I co-founded Wolfram Research along with Stephen Wolfram and others. Somewhere around 2002, I kind of accidentally got sidetracked and started working on a periodic table, which is what you see here. Around 2002, I read this book, Uncle Tungsten, by Oliver Sacks, which is a wonderful book. And he has a paragraph in there where he describes the periodic table in the Kensington Science Museum. He describes it as having samples on it. It turns out I was just misunderstanding his description of the thing. It's actually a wall display, same as everybody else's periodic table. But this kind of put the idea in my head that there ought to be a periodic table. And as far as I could tell, no one had ever done it before. And that's what caused me to build it. Is I thought the world needs a periodic table. So I mean, there's lots of different elements in here. Hydrogen is a little tricky because it's a gas. So this is a little aspirin bottle, which at one time was filled with actual hydrogen, and a key card from the Hydrogen Hotel. This is a sample I don't usually keep out because if somebody were to drop it and break the bottle, it would really be bad. I think OSHA would have opinions about spilled mercury in the workplace, really like tungsten. I can't quite get an impression of it, but that took me a while practicing being able to actually lift this thing because this weighs about 11 pounds. Everyone always asks me what my favorite element is, so I had to make up titanium as my favorite element. And this is an intake, it's called a bliss, the bladed impeller disc. So niobium is nice. It's one of its more popular uses is for piercing jewelry because it's hypoallergenic, it's compatible with tissue. The noble gases are relatively easy to display because they have very nice discharge colors. You can see an example of neon up there. Chlorine, if you hold it up to a white surface, you can make out the yellow tint. Bromine, even more so. It's got a much stronger color to it. Bismuth, it just wants to crystallize like this. It's hard to stop it when it cools. This is an ingot of indium, which I got. I think I paid $200 for this. The safe is where I keep some of the more valuable samples. 3.5 ounces roughly of gold, very old silver coins, left in mesh, random collection of ingots, gold nugget, an ounce of platinum, 10 ounces of silver, which used to be not worth much, and recently the price of silver has gone through the roof. Silver bullets, I made these for one of my columns. I'm trying to find it for werewolf purposes. Niobium crystal bar. It's created by a refining process that's no longer used, so hard to get. Rhenium, which was not particular. I think I bought it for $700. One time it was worth many thousands. Very dense, very nice stuff. I don't know how many samples I have. It's several thousand. I haven't counted recently. Only a very small amount of it is in the actual table. These two cases have many of the sort of interesting ones, the sort of more attractive looking ones. There's a bunch of stuff in here. It's not terribly well organized. This is a bottle of Radithor, which I won't touch because the cork is quite radioactive. This is one of my favorite tungsten samples. It's of ear weights. If you have a dog breed whose ears are meant to hang down, you can spread wax on the inside of the ear and sprinkle this powder on that will supposedly add enough weight to get your dog's ears to lie flat. Beryllium gyroscope spheres, extremely precise spheres. They're said to be among the most accurate spheres ever made for various different purity levels of silicon. Why Homer Simpson is etched on that wafer is the question that I really have no idea. Actual human bone with a fake knee implant in it, made of aluminum. Sulfur used to be very commonly available in pharmacies. When I was a kid, I worked hard at figuring out how to buy sulfur because you needed to make gunpowder. And the most important factor about buying sulfur when you're a kid is don't try to buy saltpeter at the same pharmacy, because then they really know what you're going to do with it. The three shells are white phosphorus incendiary mortar shells. The long thin thing with veins at the back is unfortunately a simulated depleted uranium tank penetrator.
Yeah, well, I mean, I figured when I got started with this, I thought, you know, my dad collected rocks, for example. He spent, you know, his whole life, every once in a while, he'd buy another really nice rock. And after 30 or 40 years, he had a fantastic collection of rocks and minerals. And so I thought, you know, I'll just kind of, I'm not really interested in this stuff. And, you know, if I happen to be traveling somewhere, I happen to see it, you know, maybe I'll pick it up 30 years from now, maybe I'll have an element collection. And then I go on eBay and it's like, oh, I could get that, and there's that, and look, he's also got this thing. And, you know, 6 months later, I had pretty much a complete set.
So there you have Theodore Gray. If you'd like to see that on YouTube, it is called Theodore Gray's Periodic Table. That's Gray. I did notice that he also mentioned tungsten, which has an unusual symbol of W. It's not a Latin name, which is why it wasn't on my slide with the older Latin names, but tungsten is named for wolfram, the original German name for it. So W for tungsten. Thank you very much. Start learning your elements and their symbols. You'll find exactly what 51 elements and their symbols you need to know on page 2 of your homework packet. Thank you and have a good evening. Bye.